Warcraft finally has an exciting villain. Look, the best part about the whole Gilneas campaign and everything else that just came out was the video with our boy Iridikron in it. It was awesome. Honestly, I liked it a lot, and I liked how he kind of played out, like, stay out of my way moment. The Dark Heart, he revealed that that's what this is called. Let's see what else there is about Mr. Iridikron.
So, they did a 2-minute cinematic with Verinoth and Iridikron. We've all watched it. Today, I'm going to focus on breaking down the future-y stuff. I'm going to bring in some context, even from Legion through to now. It's all kind of crazy, and I've accidentally had to solve a fairly insane number of lingering questions, so let's just go. The cinematic gives us two main things to chew on. We've got the Dark Heart,
this was the best cinematic of the whole
Titan
patch.
Infestation angle. I'll drill down on those two big things. Number one, the Dark Heart, or as Verinoth puts it, some trinket of Neltharions. It is anything but. So, recap. When we last saw him, Iridikron had made a deal with the Infinite Dragonflight. He went back to just after the defeat of Galakrond, and when we came upon him, we saw all of that energy flowing from Galakron's fresh corpse into the vessel.
Right.
Nobody directly recognized the vessel, but Chromie did notice something. To her mind, it looks like, quote, the Dragon Soul, but more ancient. Keep that in mind, and also keep in mind that we don't have a sponsor today, but if you want to get early access to our videos, lore treatises that don't fit into videos, or research reports,
I won't
and
pause
Warcraft
too
stuff,
much.
the Lore Walking podcast, which is about to start its second war series, hit up bellular.ghost.io. That's where
there you go.
we're trying to build a more sustainable future. So
go check out
we'll help us
Bellular's
do
site.
that, and in return, there will be much
Wow,
for
sheer.
you. Okay, so that's that, but let's return to the Dawn of the Infinite. So, we hold Iridikron off, Chromie prepares a big old blast of bronze magic to grab
This
the
was a
vessel,
mistake.
but behind her, Morzond rises. Of course, we need to undo
Guaranteed.
that, so we go back to the start of the dungeon, we fight our way through to just before that point in time. Chromie, well, you know, dials the gate code.
I
the
totally think the Infinite Dragonflight was the correct way to go. Yeah. Don't forget, like, the Bronze Dragonflight believes in one true timeline and kind of like a sacred timeline kind of thing. Who else believes in that kind of stuff? Yeah, the Titans. The Titans are all about that one true timeline, whereas the Infinite Dragonflight, they're not always up to bad. They're just up to kind of like creating, you know, having the multiple options, different timelines, multiple timelines playing out. So, you know, are they really evil? Was Murazan the wrong version, or was he the true version of Norse Dormu? Murazan would be able to see all futures, all possibilities. Norse Dormu can only see one. That's why he's blind half the time. Interesting thought.
Chevrons lock, Stargate things happen, through the portal we go, and there we are.
Murazan would
right
essentially
back
know
to
the
blight
truth
of
about all
Galakrond.
things.
We meet
Norse
the
Dormu
pro
knows
aspects,
nothing,
but this
except for the
time
Titans
we do
show.
something different. Previously, we fought Iridikron, but we left Deos to the proto aspects, and seemingly they lost. This time we have a different plan. Stop the Infinites together, then stop Iridikron. But of course, there's bad news for Chromie and us. That is almost certainly what Iridikron was counting on.
Yeah.
Because while
We did what he wanted.
do defeat Deos and prevent this early Morazonding, while we're busy doing that, Iridikron slurps up that juice, and he leaves, intent to pry Azeroth from the Titan's grasp.
Infinite possibilities,
Through that
that's right,
portal,
Caden.
we see Xal'atath, and obviously that pays off pretty shortly after at BlizzCon. Why did I bother recapping any of that, you may be asking? There was a reason. That's because this is the first time that our characters see this trinket. It's not the first time you saw it, you probably just didn't notice. And if you didn't notice, it ain't your fault. I also didn't remember because at the time I saw it, I thought it was something else. And that's what takes us back to 10-0. After Azageth died, the remaining incarnates went to the Forbidden Reach and they
Right.
nabbed the key to Aberys.
Yeah.
Which is what we all thought at the time. But, look again. Look at that key. That's not a key. That's the same bloody vessel. That is
shit,
the
yeah.
object that
That's the
once
thing.
full of Galakron juice is being called the Dark Heart. I mean, like, literally, here is it from the 1007 cinematic, and
Damn.
here is it from the War Within.
It showed up in that cinematic. I didn't even notice. Yeah, the Dark Heart was
like
there.
being held by Xal'atath. It's the same damn thing. We will touch on that later because I think it could be very important. Now, at that time, Verinoth pretty much just thought it was the key to Aberys, she ends up using it to work out how to enter
there he is, he's
Zaralek,
holding
and then
it, yeah.
patch 10.1 happens. Of course, at this point in time, Vyranoth thought that they were all fighting the good fight against the Titan Forged, and therefore they just wanted some more power, and that's why they'd go to Zaralek. Of course, Farak enjoyed that power a lot, but obviously to Iridikron, the whole bloody thing was just a distraction. That's all Farak was.
Yeah. He played Farak, that's for sure.
We do not know what happened between Iridikron and Vyranoth after they set Farak loose on the Shadow Flame, but we can, I think, very clearly see that he abandoned her with that vessel. So when Fractures of Time happens, I think Iridikron says, yo, I gotta bounce, see you later, and he yeets himself into some sort of infinite time hole with the thing.
Infinite time hole back to Season of Discovery?
Now, from Vyranoth's point of view,
Maybe.
what will that look like? It will look like Iridikron just lagged it halfway through the war, leaving her to deal with Farak, who has now completed his transition from, back in the War of the Scaleborn days, founder of the Primalist movement, staunch ideologue, to absolute crackpot maniac.
Right.
Which is why by the time of 10-2, she has realized that Farak has obviously went far too far, that her war has basically completely lost sight of its cause, and that she basically would be a lot more effective speaking her mind from within the fold.
By the way, also a thing on Farak, he becomes the Fire Lord for like a quick minute, right? After we kill Smolderon, he takes the essence and becomes the Fire Lord. I wonder who's going to be the next Fire Lord now. If he's dead, which I think he did. I mean, we took his health down to 0. So who's going to be the Fire Lord now?
Turns out,
doesn't there have to be one?
To listen to her. So that's basically that. She was mostly unaware of what the vessel was actually doing. She knew it was a trinket of
maybe
Lotharin's
that means he
because of
returns
where
in
they
Fireland.
got it in
Maybe
Forbidden Reach, and
Bolvar?
somehow she did, of course, know that it was clued in to the Void. But other than that, she doesn't know details. And being a dragon, she didn't watch BlizzCon. She doesn't watch this channel, which does mean that she doesn't know all the things that we do. But don't worry, I think I know what's going on. So, now that you're up to speed with the story, with what's went down, let's actually work through these things. I'm going to start off, number 1, with the vessel, and then number 2, with the essence. Right, what the hell is this funky vessel? Okay, number 1, it was Neltharian's. We know this. Number 2, to Chromie, it looked like a more ancient version of the Dragon Soul. So let's explain this. Right, way back in the day, Galakrond gets defeated. The aspects get uplifted, but other primal dragons see this and they don't want any part in it. Yeah. This rift would only grow, and as
I mean, we see them as like a better form, but probably a lot of the old proto-drakes and stuff saw it as like a deformation or something, or a corruption, right? They didn't like it. I mean, that's what the incarnates are all about. They think it was like some kind of messed up shit that went down. And then it happened involuntarily to all the other dragons. They poisoned the water and shit. So this whole thing with the Titans transforming the dragons into a better form, a lot of dragons didn't see it that way.
Detailed in the War of the Scaleborn book, well, the whole Primalist movement started.
Right, the War of the Scaleborn, that's how it started.
To infuse primal dragons with elemental power. Farak ends up being the first person to undergo and survive that process.
Oh, I didn't know that. Farak was the first.
While she is completely not down with any of this Titan stuff, she is close to Alexstrasza, which is why she's the last to join their movement. And by the way, by this point in time, Tyr is very much dead. So it actually could be possible that Iridikron learned about all of these elemental infusions by breaking in to one of Tyr's secret labs.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Like we did,
went into a facility.
Of course, with the Dragon Scale expedition, where we went, I think it's called In the Halls of the Titans or something, I forget the name of the quest, but we headed in there, right, and we saw that Tyr had been experimenting with the infusion of various things, right? So not only just infusing order into a primal dragon, but also many other elements. We then think about Brackenhide Hollow.
Well, what about even the way we
convert
Tyr, right? The way we convert Tyr, that whole facility over there. What's that called? The catalysts and everything. That's all a facility with tons of information in it that Iridikron could have easily gotten into. I mean, that thing's basically unguarded. You had the Stony boys there, but they were all asleep for a long time.
There, and well, I'm going to kill this tangent, but it will come up later when it's relevant again. Now, from Neltharian's point of view, right, he sees all of this fracturing going on. He thinks, yeah, it's going to be a war, isn't it? Now, I want you to keep in mind that since before he was uplifted to being an aspect, he was hearing whispers. So all of this time, Neltharian does actually have a pretty tough mental time. And in fairness to the book, War of the Scaleborn actually does do a really great job of kind of giving you his internal mood. But anyway, because he sees war, he makes the Drakthir. Eventually, Raszageth attacks the Forbidden Reach. The Drakthir are really strong, but they are beaten back. The Oathbinder is broken, and of course, as we saw in the Legacy shorts, Neltharion finally takes heed of the whispers he's been hearing all this time, and he unleashes some void magic to defeat Raszageth. He decides, well, nobody can know that I did this, so he locks the Drakthir in stasis.
That's why Raszageth was the one who wasn't in prison. She was the only Primalist who wasn't locked up. She was somewhere in the void. He makes a vow with himself
never to use that nasty void stuff again. Now, as the war went on, those whisperings only got louder, and by the end of the war, it basically ended up just being him and Iridikron in a 1v1. And it was not an equal match. Iridikron was superior in battle until Neltharion once again just unleashed the void on him.
Damn, I didn't know that.
Saw this. The only person who saw this was Iridikron, who, after falling unconscious, was put in stasis in the Vault of the Incarnates. Okay, the Scaleborn War is done. What next for Neltharion?
So not only did Iridikron see that whole thing go down with the with all of his proto-dragon people being transformed by the Titans, he witnessed the... Why does he look so fat here? What the hell kind of... We got thick boy right here. Daddy Neltharion, thick boy Neltharion. Here's the thing. He saw the way that the void was used against him. And remember, in the most recent cinematic, Viranath tells Iridikron, it was like, hey, you siding with the void? And he was saying something like, I only believe in its hunger, or whatever, which I guess he just wants to be able to use to defeat the Titans. That's what his end goal is. He thinks it'll give him enough power to defeat the Titans. And whether or not he's actually on their side, I don't think he is. He kind of just says it in that cinematic. I only believe in its hunger.
From there, he just
surefire way to get canceled.
Loses it, and time goes on. The timelines are kind of hazy here.
Maybe I'm into thickness.
He kept his sort of true state under wraps for thousands of years.
Yeah, there's 1,000 ways to get canceled. I think that's the least of my problems.
Experiments in his various different labs. Of course, we do know that 10,000 years before the modern era, the War of the Ancients went down.
Straza got that thickness going on too.
By the time of the War of the Ancients, Neltharion's head was well and truly cooked. He would soon essentially be, Team N'Zoth, Team Old God. And in part, this was because of the crushing burden of defending the whole planet being way too much for him, but also because he thinks that these old gods can essentially ease his personal burden and plight. Of course, part of the reason why he thinks that, why he has that vulnerability, is because the old gods orchestrated this whole, I suppose, emotional breakdown of him by continually playing on his insecurities for literally thousands of years. And then, of course, for him, there's all these past events, like how he'd say to himself, I'm a real good guy. I use the void judiciously, and I'll never do it again.
Right.
And then he rapidly would do it again. So you can kind of see how he ends up being
intentions were pure.
This sort of thing. Anyway, in this state, he makes this very powerful artifact called the Dragon Soul, and he dupes the other aspects into empowering the Dragon Soul. Then pretty soon he turns on them, and if you've ever wondered why there's not that many blue dragons alive, that's because they were kind of almost made extinct then. So that was all kind of cool.
He killed them.
You may be thinking, that's a fine story, Michael. You've told me all about dragon history and the Dragon Soul.
What does it all mean?
How does the vessel possibly fit in? Well, now we can talk about the vessel. Okay, 10.0, right after Vault of the Incarnates, we talk to the aspects. Alexstrasza warns us of Iridikron especially, because before his defeat, she says he resorted to terrible, darker bargains. Now, many people have thought, oh my god.
Fallen, thank you for the follow. Welcome to our Scourge. Interesting about this.
Bargain with the light, with the void. What has our...
Well, how do you... I mean, I guess he was just going anti-Titan. I think that's what Iridikron really wanted to do. He was like, how am I going to defeat the Titans? I'm just going to go opposite the Titans. And to him, that was the void.
Boy, Iridikron done. In reality, and given the book, War of the Scaleborn, she is almost certainly talking about the bargain he struck with Igara of the Zerkali Jaredin, who, of course, we recently kill as the second boss, I think, in
Yes, just the second
boss. Point
boss.
is, I don't think that line from Alex is talking about Iridikron being involved with Void, because, let's be real, if she did have some pertinent information, she would have said it, and if she didn't, well, yeah, congratulations, the story doesn't work. And with War of the Scaleborn...
Any thoughts of Viranath holding anything back or not being fully on the on the aspect side, that disappeared with the cinematic. I mean, she literally talked. She saw Iridikron as a sibling. You got to remember that. Like, you know how Alex Straza talks about the other aspects as clutch mates? Same thing with Viranath and Iridikron and Farak. They see each other as siblings. So she basically, I mean, she came out and said it to the other aspects. She was like, you know, my brother called me, and this is what he said. So she didn't keep any secrets from them. So she is totally aligned with the aspects now.
It's really clear what she's talking
She's
about.
she's
Alex
trustable.
basically is just warning us,
I guess is what I'm saying.
how hardcore this guy is. So from Iridikron's perspective, what the hell actually happens? Well, the series of events that would lead to the World Soul Saga must have started after 10.0, but before 10.0.7, because, as by the beginning of 10.0.7, what's Iridikron doing? He's taking the vessel that he then plans to take.
I can't believe I never noticed this.
In the past. So, of course, then to Iridikron, patch 10.1 literally doesn't matter. It's overtly just a distraction. What matters to him is patch 10.1.5, Fractures in Time, that opens with Nosdormu seeing Iridikron and Deos that they have made a deal.
That's right.
One that obviously wholly fails for the Infinites. Because, you see here in a way, I actually think Nosdormu was a bit duped. I think the Morazon
He's
that
100%
he saw,
duped.
well, that was created by Deos corrupting his past self within the dungeon. But, like, not corrupting him and turning him into Morazon. That's almost a bit of a side point, but anyway, we kind of undo that stuff. And looking back in things, it is very clear that what we do is we preserve the one true timeline. So what I actually think happened here is that Iridikron promised the Infinites a chance at turning Nosdormu early, and that is why we see and, you know, prevent that in the latter half.
So the Nosdormu that we prevent, sorry, is just an early attempt at it. It's not the true attempt. We didn't really prevent it. Like, the true moment where he's supposed to go from Nosdormu to Murazond, we haven't stopped that yet. This was like some kind of faulty early attempt that Iridikron just kind of played out so he could finish his plan. So the Infinite Dragonflight could still happen.
Iridikron getting what he wants. That's why Iridikron says, why do the Titans preserve this timeline? I.e., the timeline we just defended.
The only one that Nosdormu can see.
As for the vessel, it's very ancient. It's more ancient than the Dragon Soul. When activated on the Forbidden Reach, it shows this. Viranoth says she'll decode it, but note that even in that cinematic, she referred to it as a vessel. So my theory, therefore, is that Neltharion essentially came upon this vessel. This vessel, which is, bear in mind, older than the Dragon Soul. I think he came upon this, perhaps in the Forbidden Reach, and I think it then led him to Aberrus. That's relevant because, have you looked inside Aberrus with its massive void room full of spooky chains, stained glass windows of all gods, of Yasharj, of all of this absolutely mental stuff that nobody in the game has really
There's clues in this room I feel like we still haven't figured out.
Don't you think? But anyway, I have a feeling that, much like me writing the notes for this video, it's probably when Neltharion got in and around that room in Aberrus that, his mental health began to take a bit of a turn.
Major decline.
And that leads me to another question. Did Xal'atath do this? Did Xal'atath somehow get that vessel into Neltharion's hands?
Yeah, Murazond will still happen,
I actually think it may be the case. And unfortunately, my team, we're mid-production on the video, which would explain that. It's on Void Song, which is a weapon that unlocks some hidden dialogue. But I think it essentially confirms she's been Harbinger for a very, very long time indeed. Way before the Titans arrive in Azeroth. So, basically, right, have I just spent...
I mean, we know that she's been there for at least as long as we got Season of Discovery. I mean, she's in there, standing next to the giant freaking gem thing that fell from the sky, the one that shows up in Hallowfall, it looks like. So, I mean, she's been around. She's been around for quite a while, doing her harbinging.
Of time explaining a...
She literally also shows up before the Zandalari Empire even existed. She was there. She was part of the downfall of the Zandalari, actually. The whole rise of the bug people and all that shit. She was there for it. She was part of it.
Strange shiny disc.
She's been harbinging for a long time.
But I think in doing so, it's essentially all fit together. We see that almost certainly somehow after 10.0, that Iridikron has some form of meeting, likely with Xal'atath, or maybe with Xal'atath via the intermediates of the Infinite Dragonflight. You can then very much see how this vessel, number one, is leading our characters to Aberrus, which is just a big old distraction. How that very same thing, which predates the Dragon Soul, yet looks very similar to it, as is remarked by Chromie, how that likely also led Neltharion to Aberrus. Why did he build his very big, fancy lab in a really spooky, evil void place?
Yep.
Could Xal'atath have had something to do that? And of course, from 10.0.7 through to Dawn of the Infinite, yeah, it's abundantly obvious what goes on with that vessel. It gets full of essence. Oh yeah, it's the next bit of the video. We got to talk about the essence.
What is the essence?
Okay, let's talk about the contents.
Why?
What we do know,
what it is.
That the essence...
It's the essence of Galakron, the unending, unsatiable hunger of Galakron, which Iridikron refers to as the reason he is siding with the Void. I trust its hunger, or whatever he said.
Fills the vessel is the essence of Galakron. But what the hell does that even mean? Here goes. Okay, in Dawn of the Aspects, Tyr says this: "We never intended this path. Galakron should never have journeyed in the direction he did, and we did not prevent it. Now this young world faces annihilation." So that's our oldest bit of evidence. Our next bit of evidence is an unused line from Xal'atath in Legion, where she says this: "A powerful dragon could be a powerful tool. Alas, gone are the days of Galakron." I mean, really, Xal'atath? Like, number one, that's very hilarious with Galakron, and it perhaps ties her into maybe having an involvement there, but also...
I wouldn't be surprised if she did.
It does echo into the future of a very powerful dragon being a very powerful tool. Obviously, Xal'atath will think that she is using Iridikron, and Iridikron will think that he is using Xal'atath. Who'll be right? Only time will tell.
Yeah,
of course, technically,
it's a mutual friendship. It's a friendship with benefits. I mean, who wouldn't blame Iridikron? Her new model looks pretty good. But both of them, enemy of my enemy kind of thing. They're both aligned. Like I said before, Viranath, questions him in his alliance to the Void, and he basically, pushes that away. He's like, I'm not on the Void side. I'm just using their hunger to defeat the Titans.
You need to say that this line was written, was in the game files, but is not in the live game. That doesn't mean that technically
get away, simpleton. That's what he basically tells him.
Canon. But I mean, come on, they were obviously thinking about it. Anyway, our next piece of evidence then is from the pre-patch, where we find Progress Report Uldoris. I have 3 highlights, let's just work through them. Highlight number 1. Though the work of imbuing order magic into the Wellspring is only beginning, and it does go on, but we can cut it off there, because the core part is imbuing order magic, we knew that, but the Wellspring, that's where it gets interesting. So Tyrhold is built on the Wellspring of Eternity. And later in the text, he says, quote,
so they were poisoning the waters.
Water. Now, to dive into some older bits of lore, essentially there are places where the Well of Eternity's energies coalesced. These places include the Vale of Eternal Blossoms, Ungoro Crater, and Sholazar Basin. And, very clearly,
I see the discussion of the Xal'atath creating the elves. The whole story behind that is Xal'atath was behind the unleashing of the Bug Empire, the Nerubians, who would become the Nerubians and all that, on the Zandalari. The Zandalari started fighting them. They ended up a whole, group of Zandalari basically chased the bugs away in the fight, and eventually, which eventually led them to the Well of Eternity. By spending time at the Well of Eternity, they became elves. Right? It was that. So it was Xal'atath in essence who led them there to eventually become elves, and then eventually become Naga, even to side with the old gods and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, she did play a role in the elves becoming who they are.
Dragon Isles. So while
that's
not
where the connection
as potent as the
happens.
Actual Well of Eternity, these are the same or highly similar waters. A great place of power, of growth, of life. That'll get interesting. Okay, highlight 2. I hope your investigation into how Yogg-Saron compromised these living waters will yield answers. Now, the context here is this is a letter that was penned by Tyr to Loken. Now, of course, funnily enough, Loken would turn out to be under Yogg-Saron's influence. Anyway, point being,
I think Tyr's going to end up siding with us in the end.
Point number 3, and finally, in the meantime, we can be assured that the evolution of another Galakron will not be triggered by consuming unfiltered water. Okay. Not too long after that, we then saw some evidence of Tyr's proto-dragon magic and elemental infusions as I highlighted earlier from that Dragonscale Expedition quest. And if we were to bring all of this together, seemingly, Yogg-Saron corruption absolutely sealed the deal. But whatever happened, it made Tyr feel guilty. Is this perhaps because he was experimenting with a proto-dragon called Galakron, who maybe
That's what makes Tyr special, though. For some reason, Tyr has a conscience, which is very weird for all these different Titan creations. For some reason, he has developed a conscience, and maybe it's his time and exposure to us. But there's something different about it.
Said experimentation ended up being vulnerable to the lifeblood of the planet, very potent. That was also corrupted by Yogg-Saron, who is the self-proclaimed god of death. Maybe. Blizzard never say it outright, but I do think that's a reasonable take in the situation. And it all brings us back to the question of what exactly did Iridikron extract from Galakron's corpse? I mean, very literally speaking, you have got, let's see, A, the power of Azeroth's lifeblood, B, the corruption of an old god, C, whatever the hell Tyr may have infused into Galakron. I mean, come on, decay, the element of decay, that would certainly justify the existence of Brackenhide Hollow as like a dungeon experience, and you will note that the color similarity between decay magic and Galakron's flesh is very obvious.
Yeah, true.
And then for a final morsel, it's actually way more than all of that, because per Exploring Azeroth Northrend, on page 82, as Galakron consumed the other proto-dragons, he consumed, and this is the quote from that book, their life force. Okay, life force, don't really know what that means, but let's kick it back to the lore. What we do know is that proto-dragons appear...
Does that mean he consumed their anima? Are we back in Shadowlands now? Isn't anima a life force? I mean, it was a power using the shadows. Literally the power of the Shadowlands. It's a death, magic, life force.
Have some very natural elemental affinities.
That's it, guys.
This makes
anima
a lot of sense
grind.
because they are, in fact,
Galakron was just on an anima grind.
Origin. So,
that explains it all.
To put all of this together, Tyr may or may not have done something. Galakron grew very large in Azeroth's tasty life water, but also was corrupted because Yogg-Saron tainted it. Then, as he grew and mutated, consuming ever more creatures, he also consumed all of their essence. And I kind of hate to break your immersion here, but I kind of have an analogy, right? It's just that fish at the top of the food chain, because they're at the top of the food chain, they just have way more mercury content in their meat. That's not a great explanation for Galakron, but there we go.
Makes sense, yeah.
And as for that cut Xal'atath line,
they're absorbing it from everything else.
I do think that. Between the Vessel, Neltharion, and Galakron, I do think that Xal'atath may actually have been involved. Now, yes, this was long after the Black Empire, and we do know that she was active in the Black Empire. You know, spoiler for a future video, it's whenever she was given Void Song by Dementius somehow. Anyway, Xal'atath is confirmed to have been active 16,000 years before the current day, because she was involved in the big war between the Akir and the Trolls.
Yep, the Akir and the Trolls. That's exactly what I was saying.
What, 4,000 years after Galakron was defeated? Obviously, this isn't confirmed, and I'm partially basing this off a line that didn't actually make it into the game, but you read that line, and it really does sound like it is Xal'atath reminiscing. Anyhow, frustratingly, we do not know literally what this essence is, just that it is super powerful, but I do have to bring up another reference for you, just to make this more spicy. It's from Song of the Depths, which is a Naga prophecy we find.
Oh, wow, we're back to the Song of the Depths.
7.
Yeah.
And this is a really relevant document. I believe it's the first place where we hear the word Harbinger, which we know is Xal'atath.
We know that's Xal'atath,
as well as the line, and I quote, "A hunger lost to the ages will be reclaimed."
Yeah,
I mean,
that's Galakron,
that does
for sure.
feel like a specific thing. A hunger lost to the ages, not generally a hungry boy.
Hold on, now that we know Xal'atath's, that weapon thing, that whatever she's holding is the Dark Heart, a Dark Heart left broken awaits the taking. So Iridikron did take the Dark Heart. He filled it with the hunger lost to the ages. And such rage can be bent to serve our ends. The Harbinger speaks of a primal power that seeks to end order. Interesting. I mean, such rage can be bent to serve our ends. That's Iridikron. His rage towards the Titans. A hunger lost to the ages. That's Galakron. The Dark Heart is the thing he's holding. And the Harbinger speaks of a primal power that seeks to end order.
Lost to the ages, not
using it to summon something, bring about something.
Right?
She's a harbinger. That's what she does.
So that did lead me on a little bit of a thought exercise. What if that hunger lost to the ages? I mean, think about, you know, what that would be doing. It's a hunger. Maybe that hunger is the seed. One that was consumed by Galakron that then consumed him. And then as Galakron consumed and consumed and consumed,
Right.
that hunger that was lost to the ages within him was, you know, consuming all of that. And
consuming.
Who knows, but perhaps that is the thing that was empowered by all of the raw consumption that Galakron did. And maybe that's why whatever this hunger is so very, very powerful and so important that Iridikron has got to go back in time to just after Galakron died to slurp it back out of him. I mean, you could imagine some sort of weird, wacky scheme where this hunger is planted in Galakron. Galakron, you know, slurps the life water, yada, yada, yada. And then after this hunger has sort of done its thing and an immense quantity, a literal world threatening quantity of power has been absorbed by Galakron.
That makes sense.
You just slurp it back up again, put it in the disc, go through the void portal, say hello to Chris Metzen, and start a 3 expansion arc.
Boom.
Maybe that's what's happening.
Yeah.
What I do know is we won't have to wait long for answers because patch 10.2.7 is called Dark Heart, which is the same name of this bloody trinket that I have spent however long this video has been giving myself dementia over. Now, to end this segment, just a few lines to ponder. 1, her heart is a crater and we have filled it. And another one from the Song of the Depths, a dark heart left broken awaits the taking. Fun. I do have 2 more points to end with, but don't worry, they are not as giant as that first one. Psych, I've got a mind worm for you. Look at the Heart of Azeroth. Yeah, I know, we're back in BFA, Champion, the wounds, etc. I know, but take a look at the Heart of Azeroth. Look at the Dark Heart. They do look kind of similar.
Kind of, yeah.
And you know what they're actually both very similar to?
They're both circles.
The Dragon Soul. The reason why I say that is because the Heart of Azeroth gets infused by the essences of the Dragonflights in patch 8.2. Just like how, well, you know, just like how the Dragon Soul got, you know, slurped up with their essences. So what does that say to me? I don't really know, but discoid energy containers and warcraft
with energy.
Maybe. I mean, if I was to try to be serious about it, I'd be thinking about the origins of these things, and I would be thinking about how, yes, technically that was given to us by Azeroth, right? The Heart of Azeroth.
Yeah.
But it was kind of through a big Titan machine.
Yeah, and it had a lot to do with this guy. Maybe he's the King of Diamonds made a pawn, you know? Or it's Gallywix, right?
And given what the big Metzen said about that, maybe we should be ever so suspicious. And next, Infestation. And yes, I know, at the very start of this video, I said that of the 2 things we would talk about, it's number 1, the vessel, number 2, Infestation. Thankfully for both of us, Infestation is not as long of a segment, but okay. Basically, is this a situation of, oh my god, big retcon, Titan's bad now? The answer is no, it is not.
I don't think they're
a lot of people,
bad.
maybe some newer to the game who didn't like play back in the day, they seem to think that Titan's bad is
I don't think so.
New thing. No, it's just Titans do Titan things.
Yeah, the Titans just are doing order stuff. The Void is not good either. The Void is just doing disorder stuff. And they're 2 powers pulling in opposite directions, and neither one cares what the hell happens to us. I feel like we're just tools to try to get to their... We're just a means to their ends, and both of them are trying to use us to do that. But neither one is bad or good. They're just opposing forces.
This was very much the case, even in, say, Wrath of the Lich King in, like, 2008, 2009. You'll know that if you've done Ulduar, because at the very end, well, Algalon has things to say where you're like, wow, that is a lot of carnage you were involved with, and you felt nothing, because that's what you do. So, it's just a matter of perspective. Titans be Titans. They be doing Titan things. That's the way that it is.
Yeah.
It's kind of the way that it has been for ages, really. But it is something, what Iridikron said that is, that plays into one of my suspicions. I think that Azeroth was left very dark and very damaged after the Black Empire. And I think when the Titans found it, they were spooked by that. They couldn't remove the old god, so they had to imprison them. And then the whole world, they just covered with these big machines that are essentially...
Well, they tried to remove the old gods, and by doing that, you had Aman'Thul ripping out Yasharaj from the center of the planet, almost destroying it. So I think then they just went with the imprisonment method instead.
Blasting her with arcane energy, and just like how in the halls of infusion they're trying to uncorrupt those waters and then infuse them with order magic, I think that's what they're doing to Azeroth herself. Finally, Iridikron is not Team Void. He says he trusts its hunger.
There you go.
Point being,
that's the line I was referring to earlier.
he understands the nature of the Void, and he's taken that into account. His ultimate goal is to defeat the Titans, and to do that, he is hastening the Harbinger's plans so that she may kick off the Midnight expansion, which has been described as essentially the massive Light versus Void showdown, one that will then, therefore, force the Titans to return. Now, how does Iridikron plan to defeat the Titans? That's a big question. I will note one thing, though. He's pretty big, right? I mean, I think he might be getting bigger. I don't know if this is just a cinematic model being larger than his boss model in the dungeon, but it sure looks to me like Iridikron is just getting bigger. When the Titans return, I wonder if they will do that in their full form, because remember, a Titan in its sort of fully powered up whatever stage, they'll be as large as Sargeras was, and remember how big he was. Now, look, I'm not saying Iridikron's going to suddenly become the size of, I don't know, a planet, because that would be absurd, and frankly, it would look so incredibly goofy that there's no way they could pull it off. Anyway, here we are. I set out to explain a 2-minute cutscene. Who knows how long it's been? I've definitely given myself brain damage. I hope you made it through unscathed.
Brain damage? Though. Sounds like a typical lore segment.
You can help bankroll my team at bellular.ghost.io, where we'll be delivering much more for you as well. And if you'd like to watch a video next, well, I think my big Last Titan video is the perfect one to watch after this one. So, I'll see you over there.
Yes. Yeah, very good. Look, the main thing is, I think Iridikron he's not aligned with the Void necessarily. He's just using it. Using it to his ends of defeating the Titans. That's what he's doing. He finds it as an opposite, and he discovered that power when he battled with Neltharion. So, very interesting stuff. I think Iridikron's actually a great villain so far, and I've enjoyed seeing his character develop. We'll see where it goes further in the War Within.